It's good to have a slot right after lunch. People are not that attentive, so I can say whatever I want to say. But I do need to speak to my own slides, so I'll wait for that. All right. Well, thanks for being here. I guess most of the folks here at the show are from the European market or other markets, but not as much from the US. We were finding out that there are only like a handful of people who want hands from the US market, and there's one. So Reach Mobile is a consumer brand in the US market. It's a digital first or digital only brand, if you will. And I'll talk about a few things. I think one, just kind of introduce us a little bit. We are at the early stages of entering the European market. That was one of the reasons for us to be here and talk about what we do. So talk a little bit about what Reach Mobile is, how do we differentiate and drive loyalty with our brand in the US market to see if it works for us in the European market or not. We honestly don't know. It's too early for us to know. And then how we leverage that to drive, more loyalty, less churn. And then the most important part for us is the technology behind it. We took a little bit different approach than a lot of traditional MVNOs, at least in the US market. Again, I don't claim to know the European market well enough to speak to it and just kind of touch upon that a little bit. Feel free to ask questions as we go, if anybody has any. We don't have to wait till the end of the presentation. So just a brief overview. So we have Reach Mobile, which is a consumer brand, launched about 2 years ago. Runs on 2 networks in the US market, on Verizon and on the T-Mobile network. I guess so much for the loyalty to exclusivity to one carrier, BT, Nick's example. I'm sure there's a lot more value to that, but that's how we do it today. Reach Next, which is our platform behind it. So the Reach consumer brand is a customer of the Reach Next platform brand. So I guess we eat our own dog food, so to speak. And then Reach Care, which is the sort of the customer service unit, if you will, and we offer Reach Care as a service as well. And I think the fact of separating these three will be evident as I go forward a little bit into the presentation. So first on Reach Mobile, when we sort of looked at the market and decided that we wanted to do a consumer MVNO against our best judgment and against the conventional wisdom, the idea, at least from our point of view, was that the US market has a lot of distrust working with MNOs or distrust working with larger companies, and people always worried about their bill is too complicated. They have, their device is free, but it's not really free. If I want to leave, it's too complicated, and so on and so forth. Lots of those sort of challenges in the market. And our view was we want to make it radically simple, right? So one of the KPIs we set for ourselves was no more than 3 clicks to do any action. If we can make it simple, we're not going to offer the feature, right? And the second thing we made was that anybody in the team who comes in with an argument or with a, hey, we want to do X, Y, or Z, if the reference is that, my AT&T or my Verizon or my T-Mobile app does this, it's just the weakest argument we make. Like, we don't care what they do, we don't want to follow what they do. And the intent was to kind of more look at other OTT players like Lemonade Insurance or other digital first brands that launch digital. We kind of took the notion out of prepaid, postpaid, because my wife is not techie, she doesn't know if she is postpaid or prepaid, right? People don't really get. And took more the model of subscription. So our brand is actually a combination of prepaid and postpaid. So depending upon how a consumer signs up for a particular service, and then have a 24/7 support behind it, and then take a customer first mentality. So we created this notion of what we call Reach 10, kind of the 10 principles we live by, which they're published on our website. But for example, don't do anything towards a customer that you wouldn't like to do it yourself, right? So every time we had a fork in the road for left and right, we said, hey, if I'm the consumer, would I like it, right? If the answer is no, then just don't do it. It's just not, we're not going to take it to market. And we stayed very true to that principle, right, of doing things that way. Of course, one of the other Reach 10, elements is be fiscally responsible. We are far from for-profit. We are, funded by venture capital. We actually just yesterday announced we raised $16 million, which brings our total funding to about 36 million, 35.6 to be precise, to date. And part of this funding is to grow our business in the European market, which we are again, kind of just knocking on the doors to see if people open it with smile or not. And if they do, then we go in. If not, then we'll stay out of the European market and continue to focus on the US market. And then lastly, we took, for our consumer brand, we took the approach of being a socially conscious brand. So every consumer who signs up on our service, their service goes towards giving free service to somebody else in the world, right? And for that, we partner with NGOs all around the world, starting with 3 countries. We picked US itself, because home, Nigeria, and India. The reason to pick the other 2 countries for us was based on World Economic Forum data of connectivity or affordability for connectivity, right? That's how we kind of started off with it. And I think pair that with good quality and price, to be at par. That's kind of the table stakes, because nobody wants to pay more. They're happy to pay same but get a better service, right? That's sort of the mindset behind it. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention, we're the only brand in the US today that is rated 4.9 out of 5 on Trustpilot. Everybody else kind of is 4.3 and then goes, under thereafter. We'll talk about why that is. So I think, as we went forward to build this brand and bring it to market, first we went the traditional route of going to MNOs and then going to third-party platform providers who give you the technology to go launch a service in the market. And we realized that what we wanted to do, the way we wanted to bring this brand to market, we couldn't use off-the-shelf technologies. We couldn't use the tools offered by MNOs for MVNOs. We thought they were cumbersome. They were built a while ago and they weren't what we wanted to do, at least, right? Not to say that they weren't good, they just didn't meet our expectation of where we want the quality to be in terms of overall experience. So we decided to push our entire strategy by a year and a half. And we decided we're going to go build a net platform first, right? Before we launch a consumer brand. And that started kind of the Reach Next journey. So we went back to the whiteboard. We built everything from ground up, right? The complete cloud-based system from ground up. So the idea was, again, create a very simple consumer experience for everything we do. No gotchas. There is absolutely zero fine print in any of our products on the consumer side. If we have to say something fine print, we don't bring it to market, right? So we have stuck by those principles quite well. Most of our customers come from referrals, right? Our referral score is very, very high. Then I talked about Reach 10, right? Part of it is no fine print, no contract, transparency. We do subsidize devices at times during holidays, during promotions, but we still don't lock people under a contract. They're welcome to leave whenever they want to leave. So the idea is people stay because they like the brand, they like the comfort of working with you, they know they can trust you, right? So that's kind of the, in some sense, the market segment we went after, which is anyone, right? And even though we built a very digital-only experience targeting Gen Zs and millennials, but in reality we have more it's kind of evenly spread, but we have a lot more customers who are like baby boomers or older population, retired population as well, because they find it, even though they are not sort of digital savvy per se, but this experience is simple enough that we find a lot of those customers joining our service today in the market. And then lastly, the values, right, which is kind of going back to, having the socially conscious component of it ingrained right in the core of the brand, right, on the consumer side. One of the big, outside of these aspects of, things that appeal to the consumer, the simple CX. I remember one of the tests we did when we were launching is, because the very first experience is people are porting their number over to your service. And we had my 12-year-old, who was a gymnast, or she was a gymnast at the time at least, doing a handstand or a bridge and activating a mobile service. We actually recorded the video porting the number for real, not just like a fake video, just real-time recorded, and we pushed it out on our channels, and she was able to successfully activate a new service while while she was in a bridge doing gymnastics. So again, goes back to if you can't make it simple, don't put it out in the market, right? And we do a lot of testing on it too. We do a lot of KPI testing. Like for example, if you're quoting a number, I don't know how it works in the European market, but in the US market, every carrier does it differently. Of course, there's an FCC mandate on allowing it. So when our customer go to quote a number, we know, okay, you're coming from Verizon, you're going to get an OTP message that is good for 30 minutes, right? So go look for that on your existing phone. Oh, you're coming from AT&T, go to the top left-hand corner of your bill, and there'll be a PIN number there, right? You're coming from this particular carrier, which is a VoIP system, that's going to take longer, it's not going to happen right away. If your port failed, our agents get a task created immediately for them to call the customer before they call you. But if they do reach you to it, you exactly know why they're calling or they're chatting with you, right? So all of those capabilities are built in. We have 4.9 star not because we have better agents, right? We of course have a culture of positiveness in an agent organization. Reach Care is all of our agents are employees. We don't outsource it. At least not today. But they also have great tools, right? Our back office that they use is built with the same rigor as our front consumer-facing products, right? So we treat our agents as our customers, basically, right? So within the organization, right? They have the loudest voice on what goes in and what doesn't go in, right? If they can't support it, a feature, then again we won't put it out, right? So there are things that we don't offer that others offer in the market, not because we don't have the technical capability to, but we don't think it's simple enough, right? Like for example, we went out to launch Roam Like Home, which means that if you have a plan in the US for $30, 20 gigabyte, whatever the plan is, if you travel abroad, it's just the same plan, right? We went and implemented 3 different solutions to do it. We still didn't launch it in the market. It's been a year and a half. It's not because we're not smart people, the team's pretty good. We have a great UX team, we have a great digital team, care team, technology. The reason we didn't launch it is because the experience is not simple, right? Any partner we try to work with on the roaming side for international roaming, we just couldn't build it in a way that is simple for the consumer. They had to click 3 buttons and they have to do this and that to make it work for Roam Like Home, right? Where you don't worry about your plan at all. And we still haven't launched it. We continue to search for a partner. We invested a lot in that. We built it out, we prototyped it, we tested it with some customers, but at the end it wasn't simple. It wasn't 3 clicks. It took like 5 clicks to do it, and then you had to grow one more thing to do it. So it's still sort of in a roadmap, but we have still not launched it in the market. So a lot of the secret behind it, the differentiation for us in terms of driving the customer loyalty, comes from the technology, right? From our side. Of course, there is a consumer brand has a human element to it. Where the agents are trained not to be robots, we have given them some flexibility in the back office where they can use common sense to make decisions. Of course, there are caps to how far they can take it, but they have a lot of flexibility. But aside from that, aside from the kind of the human touch on the consumer side, aside from having the socially conscious brand aspect, transparency, no fine print, all of that sits on the backbone of technology, right? What platform do you have available to do your job? Because you're not going to hire better people doing customer service than somebody else, right? So you got to give them better tools. That brings us to the technology, which is our Reach Next, platform. Our consumer brand sits on top of the Reach Next platform. So the way we build Reach Next is, and there are other customers, by the way. There is a broadband company in the US called Wow Broadband, about I think 1 million households, so about 3 million potential mobile subs. They just launched a mobile service called Wow Mobile. Actually, it went live this morning. They use that platform, right? So it's built entirely on our systems, to go in the market. So this is what we do when we are launching services. The brand mobile is not really an actual brand; it's just an example to illustrate. But what we do is give them all the pieces to launch, a particular mobile service. We don't just stop at mobile service. We support several use cases, for the Reach Next system on which Reach Mobile is built. And Reach Mobile consumer brand uses not all but some of these use cases. So MVNO, which I don't need to explain what that is to this audience. even though I often find myself explaining what an MVNO is to a lot of different places I go visit. Fixed wireless, which some of the folks talked about. Dario mentioned that this morning in his keynote. We launched a nationwide fixed wireless service in the US with a large broadband provider who hasn't yet publicly announced. It went live in January. They have announced the service is there in the market. They have not announced that they use our platform, so I'm not at liberty to speak about the name of the client. But it's entirely built on the ReachNext system, right? And then we have the ability to do, all the other pieces: IoT, failover internet, voice over LTE. We are basically a service layer on top, right? That has IT and service orchestration, and whatever the network is, broadband or satellite or wireless, we are somewhat agnostic to it, though there are some dependencies, and then doing service bundles, right? So I think doing this also creates a loyalty play. I was asking the question earlier this morning on the keynote about the triple play, right? The US market at least had the notion of triple play in the broadband industry, where you got your phone, your internet, and your TV, right? And that's how you kind of had that stickiness to the customer. People cut the cord, they went away from the triple play model, and the broadband companies have now used mobile, to drive customer loyalty in triple play. And that's kind of where we come in, because we have our own mobile brand, but then people can leverage our platform to create multiple mobile brands. And typically it's 60 to 90 days. Everything is kind of built in a fashion that you can launch, very rapidly with a new brand. We offer various different options for them to do it. RCP stands for the Reach Co-branded Partner, so where somebody can launch a brand but not have necessarily take the burden of compliance, at least in the US market, right? So we can be the carrier of record, and we can have multiple brands on top of it, as long as the consumer is made aware that it's powered by Reach. So we are driving customer loyalty not just by our own brand, but by also other brands, and they all are completely white labeled, right? The only place you see our name there is it says powered by Reach, plus the relatively small font. It obviously looks bigger on this big screen stretched out. But if you go to wow.reachmobile.com, for example, it's their brand, but it says powered by, right? So then they get the benefit of all of the technology that we have built, right? They get the back offices, the customer support, the digital experience, the digital first experience, but they can blend in the broadband incentives into it. So if you're a broadband customer, you get a cheaper subsidized mobile device. And then you can create this new triple play, if you will. So if you have an internet from your broadband company and then you have 3 phone lines on it, then it's obviously stickier, right? It's hard to leave, especially if the service is good, right? So I think that's kind of where the ReachNext comes into play. But when we do either the consumer brand of our own, or if we are working with another client who's launching either a mobile service or a fixed wireless service or voice over LTE as a POTS replacement, DSL replacement with fixed wireless, failover internet, IoT, any of those use cases, we kind of build the entire experience and bring to bear where we invested a lot in building that experiences, right? So the entire journey of learn by get, use, pay, support. Just quickly flash through it. Simple Mobile again is not a brand, but when we are creating that customer experience, and when we say it's soup to nuts, you think of all the audiences involved. You have the consumer, and then you have the agent, right? So the right hand side is kind of the agent, the left hand side is the consumer. You have the entire enriching and digital experience for both sides, because agents are again customers, right, in our world, right? We treat them as customers, we give them the technology as if they're our customers. So that's built in a way that it's simple to understand for people. You have a lot of capability to bring features. So we look at marketing teams and business development teams that they should be like kids in a candy store, right? When they're leveraging the platform. If they want to experiment with a new influencer to try something out, it should be 24 hours or less for them to go try it. If they are leveraging Google or Facebook to drive acquisition, it should be pre-integrated with the system. They should be able to see how much was my cost of activation, what is the churn from when I acquired from Facebook versus Google versus some influencer, so they can look at all of that, right? So there's a huge BI engine built behind it as well that helps you again to win the right type of customers and then to drive loyalty with those customers, right? And the intent here is that either for our own consumer brand, we have it segregated quite well, where our consumer brand truly acts as our customer of the reach next platform company, same company, platform group, if you will. The same way we expect our clients to, right? So we tell our clients that, hey, if you're using a platform, you should require zero technology investment, right? You should only think about marketing and distribution. Everything else is handled by our system. Taxes, payment, invoicing, policy, catalog management, OSS, PSS functionality, creating family plans, all of that, back office, whatever it is, right, that you need to run a particular service. If it is a fixed wireless, then router integrations, right, because you need a fixed wireless router in the home or in the enterprise. All of those things are handled by the platform. And in a seamless manner, right? So if I am using fixed wireless and somebody calls in saying, hey, I forgot my Wi-Fi password, they can go to their app, reset it, they can call a call center. The call center has the same system, they can go do it for them because it's all kind of blended into their integration, right? So the idea is again to make the overall customer experience very, very simple to drive more loyalty. This is some more. Again, the right-hand side is the back office, the left-hand side is the consumer interface. These are just examples of it, right? But again, depending on the use case, it's all built, to spec. This is more of a fixed wireless, brand that's doing just broadband, but through 5G. But it could be broadband on, regular fiber or cable or DSL as well, right? Because we are somewhat network agnostic when it comes to that. Even little things like in the billing system, there's a lot of marketing capability built in. So the marketing teams can go and bring in new services. They could, they might have launched a new security product. They can go advertise that. So there's a lot of room for that, right? A lot of affiliate integrations into the product. So they want to sell serious discount pharmacy card, they can do that. They want to do a branded credit card, of their own brand, they can bring that. They want to sell devices on Amazon and have a kickback, those affiliate integrations are available. So it's basically all inclusive, built in one place, so you don't have to go to 5 vendors. And again, going back, the earlier part of the presentation, when we decided to launch a brand, we wanted to do all of this. We couldn't find a single solution in the market that made that available without having to pay millions of dollars to some legacy vendors who I won't name, and still a lot of inflexibility. When we get it, we want to change something, it's like a 6 months process, 3 month process, and it costs like $150,000 to do that. We made it simple enough that it's a 24, 48-hour process and costs you nothing, right? Once you have the platform, you have license to make all of those changes, right? So we kind of, basically, the whole idea was keep it simple, for the consumers, for the vendors, for the customers to use the system. Some more examples of that, overall, it's basically have the entire experience built in. Learn by, I think I'm going a little bit over my time here, so I'll rush it, but all of these pieces are built into the system so that the customers don't have to think about it and they can focus on, basically marketing and distribution, right? That's kind of the emphasis on the way we do it. So Reach Consumer Brand sits on top of a Reach Next platform, which is available for any of the clients, and that's what we're trying to see if it makes sense in Europe or not, right? So we're sort of in the early stages of doing that. I won't necessarily get into the technology details, but just at a 10,000 feet level, if you think about launching any of the services, right? MVNO, fixed wireless, VoLTE, IoT, all of it, we kind of look at it as a 3-legged stool. Leg 1 being the network, and then IT and service orchestration. We don't do anything on the network side. We partner. And typically we partner with one MNO in a country. We will integrate with more than one, but our intent usually is one preferred MNO in a country. And then we make sure that we give them a super powerful system so they can differentiate as a wholesale provider. So they are not just a traditional wholesale provider that says, hey, you want to launch an MVNO? It's going to take 1 year and you have to do X, Y, Z to make it work. We make it super simple for them so that they can be differentiated in the marketplace. 90 to 95% of our business comes through MNOs today, right? They are our biggest salespeople. We literally have 3-4 people in sales and business. Well, half of the business team is here, right? Today in Berlin. So we have a very small team. But majority, 95%, is basically MNOs, right, who bring business to us because it helps them differentiate. And the earlier person, Nick, who was presenting before, made a reference to having some sort of exclusivity or some special relationship, which is what we've done as well, right? Once we identify a preferred MNO, we create some uniqueness and differentiation and some level of, in a particular market segment, sort of carve out so that they have the benefits, so they can truly differentiate, so that they are not only competing on price, right? When they go in, their solution is a lot more enriched than somebody else's solution. So we don't do anything on the network side, but when it comes to IT service orchestration, we do everything from soup to nuts, right? Now, not everything is built in-house, depending upon the use case. 75 to 90% is our own system, all cloud-based. But then we do a lot of third-party integration, but we take responsibility for them. We are representing those integrations, right? And this is just a sample of those. So for example, payment, right? We're not a payment company, so we'll integrate several different payment gateways, right? So the client can pick whichever one. Taxes, we're not a tax company. Or financing, we're not going to give loans to people, but people do need loans, right? May it be for a router, may it be for a device. So we will integrate with banks, right, to bring those to market. But we are responsible for all of it. We have our own CRM, but we also integrate third party, right? So if somebody wants to use Salesforce or HubSpot, it's part of the integration already, and it makes it simple, right? And when we say turnkey, it's down to if there are 400 different transaction messages exchanged between the consumer and the brand, all of them are written down, right? The brand approves it, but they're all built into the system. So it truly is, our goal is to get to under 30-day launch, right, target. So we can launch any service that you mentioned before within 30 days. If it is hardware-based, is fixed wireless or failover, we have several router integrations. This is just a sample of them, by the way. Not all of the integration, but we continue to build more and more. Every time we add a new client, there's always 1 or 2 or 3 new integrations. But the way we do them is we make them part of the marketplace so that the next client has more choices to pick from, right? So we obviously can't be experts in everything. We totally know that. We don't have neither the investment nor the time to do it. But all the core stuff, we build it ourselves. But everything that's ancillary to make that service work, affiliate marketplaces, influencer campaigns, Google, Facebook integrations, payment gateways, devices, banking, logisticals, right? So if you have to send a truck out to do a fiber, integration with the third-party logistical systems, all of those things, we basically use the marketplace concept so that the client has the choice to do it. I think you're giving me an island out, yes? Yeah. So I'll stop here, and if anybody has any question, I guess you can find me afterwards outside of here. Do we have time for asking for a question, or would you rather stop?
I think we could. We've got some questions.
Okay. If anybody has any question, I'm happy to answer. Please go ahead. Straight for the mic.
Great presentation.
I can't hear still. Is it on? The mic?
Hello. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great presentation. In terms of user experience, do you offer an app or is it all web-based?
In terms of user experience, we offer iOS, Android apps, tablet-optimized websites, mobile-optimized website, desktop-optimized websites. So the entire gamut of what, and they're all white labels. They're all kind of. We go through a marketing onboarding process where we give you a tool where you update your branding assets, and then comes out the other end to your solution. So, can I take one more question here?
I think we probably should leave that.
So I'm happy to talk to you.
5 minutes, but you can chat.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I'll talk to you. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for taking long.
No, very, very